5 tonight's guest is Chris Dudley, gubernatorial candidate, Republican Party. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Joe. Great to be here.
You've spent some time on the trail now, campaigning. What's it been like, and how much different is it? You've traveled as an NBA player, but tougher, harder? What are some of the things you've learned?
Well, it's not as tough physically because you're not out there running up and down the court and banging, but it's tiring as far as the grind of just moving from one stop to the next. But I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed getting across the state and really enjoyed the interaction with Oregonians and talking with people and talking to them about what's affecting their lives and what they'd like to see different in our state, and just talking about the future of Oregon.
Speaking of Oregonians, here in Southern Oregon, spending time down here, because obviously the governor spends a lot of time in Portland, it's the big metropolis, but down here in Southern Oregon we're having a lot of problems with the economy and sustainability and all those sorts of things because it's been based on a lot of rural areas and the timber industry. If you were elected governor, would you spend some time down here? How would you work with these counties that are really struggling?
Absolutely. I've been down here, as you know, multiple times, frequently as a candidate, and we'll do so as a governor as well. And I think it's very important that you engage across the state. I feel as governor it's important that you spend as much time outside of Salem as you do inside of Salem, because that's how you hear what is going on, what is needed, see what is needed, and put the attention where it's needed.
Down here, we have a real problem. As I was mentioning, the latest numbers last week we were talking about, we're not looking good for the two counties, Josephine County and Jackson County, as far as unemployment rates. And as I mentioned, it's based a lot on timber. What can be done to bring in high tech? I know recently you said Oregon is bad for business. How do you bring those companies in that are the future of holding jobs here in Oregon?
Well, when you look at our state, and we know the national economy has suffered, but relatively, Oregon has really suffered. We're 47th out of 50 states in job creation. We're leading the nation, or we're among the national leaders in unemployment. In fact, we've been higher than the national average 15 out of the last 16 years. We need to turn around the climate, business climate in the state of Oregon. And I would say that the policies, failed policies, lack of leadership of the past 20 years have put us in the situation we're in today, and we need to turn that around. And we need to be, as you said, bring new businesses here, and I think as government creates the environment in which businesses are created. And whether that's and we just had a business roundtable, which I just came from, and we were talking about some of the areas that are being affected and ways to improve the business climate. And we talked about workforce training, and there's whether it be community college or higher ed. Higher education to me is going to be a big driver of our future economy. I've liked to say that the education of today is the economy of tomorrow for Oregon, and it's emphasizing those areas of growth, emphasizing small business, the entrepreneurs, and getting our business environment going so we can have jobs.
You mentioned higher education. A lot of problems that people were seeing is that people would graduate from schools around here, Southern Oregon, Oregon Tech, or even Oregon or Oregon State, but then their job had to take them out of state. They had to move away from their families. So what are some of the programs you can do? Can you give tax incentives? Can you get businesses from California to come into the state so that they can stay here? Are there some things? What can a government do to get those?
Well, I think the first thing is you take care of your existing clients, your existing customers. You take care of the businesses that are already here and create an environment in which they can succeed. So number one is, as governor, you focus on the businesses that are here. And number two, then you do recruit and bring other businesses here and also spur ways of growing businesses in our state.
How long do you think it would take to bring the Oregon economy back? If you were able to get in there, become governor, what kind of plan do you see bringing it back?
Well, I think there can be a fairly significant impact immediately by saying Oregon is open for business, we embrace business, and turning back that pendulum that has been going anti-business in our state, starting it to go the other way. And I've talked about reducing capital gains, accelerated depreciation for capital investments, free enterprise zones. In other words, things that encourage businesses to invest in the state of Oregon to create jobs for Oregonians.
All right, Chris, we'll have more on the campaign trail and more on some of your thoughts in just a few minutes, so stick around. More 5 on 5 right after the break. Welcome back to the 5 on 5. Tonight's guest is Chris Dudley, gubernatorial candidate from the Republican Party. Once again, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
We've been talking a lot about the economy. I want to dive in a little bit with something you brought up a while back, and we had your opponent, Dr. John Kitzhaber, on here, and his response to the same old, coming back, you had mentioned that it's kind of the same old politics. He had said that his response was that the Republicans were in control of the legislature for his 8 years that he was there, and that he had to constantly veto things and tactics that they were doing, and that it wasn't the same old, that they were the ones who kind of put this problem into place in the situation we're in. What would your response be to that?
When you're elected governor, you're in charge. You're in charge. And you set the agenda, and if there's something that you do not approve of, you veto it. And he showed that he's capable of vetoing things. So I don't think don't blame it on who was in the legislature when you were there. He had plenty of opportunity. He inherited a good economy, but did not set up a reserve fund. Did not address the PERS situation. Unemployment increased by 65% under his watch. He did not do the things to set up our economy. And I would make the argument that we're eating off the table that he set today.
And you mentioned veto, and along with that, when a legislator is Republican and you have a Democrat and vice versa, it's really feeding into the problems we have now, the wide gap between the two parties. And we have a lot of Democrats in this state. So if you were elected, how would you work together to bring the sides together so that both are kind of happy? There's a middle ground.
Well, one thing that starts off is it's access and communication. It's working the halls of Salem. It's talking before the bill gets to your desk to say yay or nay and veto, to actually have that dialogue and be out there and talking. And that's one thing that I've heard, and I know you've heard as well, that for the past 16 years, that simply hasn't been done. I was talking with a state senator in Roseburg not long ago, and I said, when's the last time you've actually talked with the governor? He said, in 8 years, he never had. And that's part of the problem there. And I think that's something that happened, that's the reason you had so many vetoes during that time, was you need that dialogue and working together, reaching across the aisle, and having that communication. It's very important.
When we were talking about it earlier, let's go back to that point of coming down and visiting the counties, because they are so different. Even just within Southern Oregon, you have different cities that really have different political views. And how do you get out and talk to those people and make them understand that some things that you're working on and that you can fix, can't fix, all those sorts of things, to bring such a diverse area together?
Well, the first part is dialogue. It's being able to access the governor's office, and it's being able to get your problems to the governor's office, having the governor come to your county. I've traveled to each of the 36 counties during the primary, and several times over. And I'll be in a county meeting with elected officials or a meet and greet, and they'll say, you know what, the governor hasn't been in our county in 5 years. Well, no wonder there's this problem. So the first part is that communication. It's getting out and understanding the problems, getting into the counties, and then it's working for a solution.
Well, let's wrap things up with just your thoughts of getting in there. What could you feel like immediately, first thing, if I was able to get in there, that this is what I would do and this would help turn our state around in all areas? Well,
there's three main areas. Number one is business climate. Oregon is open for business. Every bill that comes across my desk is going to be looked through the prism, does it create jobs? Really emphasizing job growth. We as a state have to grow the economy, absolutely have to. Second area is spending on the spending side. We have to rein in reset the size of government. We have to live within our means, and we have to do so in a way that allows the hard-working Oregonians keep more of their dollars. The third area is education. And as I said earlier, education of today is your economy of tomorrow. We have to focus on education, both K through 12, but higher education for our future. Those are three main areas which will set us up well for our future.
All right, Mr. Dudley, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Joe.
That is it for the 5 on 5. Stick around. More news right after the break.